2, 1. And hello, Robert. What is going on?
Not too much. Not too much. Very excited to be here.
Yeah. And if we can't guess from your background, I think this podcast has something to do with music. And this is very exciting. So can you introduce yourself a little bit
Yeah.
about yourself and your band?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name is Robert Manzoni. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. It is very hot right now. And yeah, I love music and I love Jesus. So my band is Searching Serenity, and that's kind of the combination of what I do. I make metal music and I do all the lyrics and themes about Jesus and biblical topics, and it's a blast.
And so we live in an interesting time where I would
Mm.
say we're not to be all lingo-y, but we live in a
Mm,
decentralized musical time, which is awesome
sure.
because you don't need a major recording label. The ability to have a in-home recording studio has drastically reduced in price over the years.
Mm.
Digital workstations and all that. And so it's really awesome to see so many different bands popping up because you don't have that label going, ew, we don't like that, or it's not in our taste, or politics, and they want to make
Yeah,
money, and you're just doing this in your free time, uh in between your 9 to
absolutely.
5. And
Absolutely.
so searching serenity, I
Hmm.
like that. How did you come up with that name?
Yeah. So I'll kind of give like the short summary. It's honestly kind of funny, but I just feel like it was meant to be, you know. So the band started almost a decade ago, but about 9 years ago was when we finally had a full team, full lineup together. And we had a bassist who was in just very short-lived, just for a couple months. Didn't find out until after he left that he actually was like Satanist instead of Christian. So I don't know why he joined a Christian band, but I'm glad he did. He got to be around some good, good people for a while. But he's the one that actually suggested the name. He knew that we were Christian, so he actually suggested Seeking Serenity initially, which kind of flowed a little bit better, but that was taken by a couple bands already. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do that's like real similar? So we chose Searching Serenity. But I don't know. I've just always thought that's kind of funny that the one non-Christian member was the one that came up with the name and kind of had a centralized Christian theme for it, and it just kind of worked out that way. So Tommy, I appreciate that.
Shout out to Tommy, you're the man.
Shout out to Tommy, honestly. Yeah.
um that
Yeah.
that is so that's something that has been a topic in conversation for a lot of things, where it's like, for let's talk about Evanescence, because I feel like a lot of people know
Sure.
Evanescence.
Yeah.
The What was it, the guitarist or the bassist, I can't remember. The
Mm.
guitarist was very strongly Christian, and so a lot of the
Oh, okay.
lyrics were very Christian, in so much that Evanescence CDs were being sold in Christian stores. Amy Lee found out, she didn't like that, and it was like this whole debacle. He ended up leaving the band, and then she kind of went. But I'm just saying, the music that got her famous, just
Yeah.
putting it out there, and the Daredevil movie, and pretty much any 2000s movie, that was the
Sure.
song, that and
Sure.
Linkin Park.
I don't know if I even knew that story about it being sold in Christian stores. That's kind of funny,
Yeah, it was
but that's
I want to
wow.
say it was like Lifeaway was the one that was selling it, because they're like, yeah, look at
Okay.
this, it's Christian rock, right next to Skillet and stuff.
Yeah,
So
it's not as
everyone,
crazy as Skillet, but
yeah.
whoa. Yeah, that's funny, man. Yeah, that is cool though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Huh.
real interesting, doing Christian music and it not being rinse and repeat
Yeah.
choir, or the billionth take on, put your
Good
shoulder to the
father.
wheel, the fountain, and
Yeah,
insert, praise be, and all these songs that just get sung a billion times.
right.
And so I feel like that's, if we consider the world Babylon, I feel like that's where the music has just won out, because you get
Sure.
so many people putting stuff out, and then Christians are like, why does nobody want to come hang out? And it's like, your worship music sounds the same in 30
Yeah.
years. Um, no
And it just
hate,
doesn't
no
stick with
hate
some
on it.
people, you know? It's like I have grown up in a church that they, we have like a 1982 hymnal, which for a lot of them probably feels real recent, even though a lot of the stuff in there is hundreds of years old. And it's just like, man, I mean, these aren't bad songs. They have good history, and I can appreciate that, but I don't feel as worshipful with like an organ and 500-year-old songs, sometimes at least. But then there's also like kind of like you said too, like the rinse and repeat stuff with some newer stuff can also get really tiring too. If you keep it all in such a small box of variety, I don't know.
I see a lot of movements going on with
Mhm.
with my faith, and I'm involved with other musicians who are putting stuff out that if you listen to, you're like, oh wow, that's nice. It's not an
Yeah,
acapella take on how font of blessings or
sure.
down by the
Sure.
water. And so I feel like that's what people are missing. And there's like,
Yeah,
if you think about it, there's tiers of music. And
sure.
I feel like Christians just got horse blinded and they're like,
Hmm.
oh, we'll play one style.
Yep, this is ours.
uh like, was it
Yeah.
Jeremy Clamp? Pretty sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
or Jeremy Camp. Yeah, with
Jeremy Camp.
he
Like
did what was
he put out
um
the album Lights, and then like
yeah.
every other group was like, oh, okay.
This
Copy.
is ours.
Copy.
Yeah. Get out the cookie cutters. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real interesting. And
Hmm.
so let's talk
I
about that.
feel.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
go
Sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, just kind of off of that, like, I feel like there's definitely a lot of backlash against like Christian metal and stuff too, because people will be like, "Oh, that sounds so evil. How can that be worshipful to God?" And this, that, the other. And I love Psalm 100 where it says, I've got it up just because I didn't want to totally butcher it, but I love the fact that it literally says, like to make a joyful noise to the Lord. It doesn't say what genre that noise has to be. It just I just feel like, at least I feel like if all the lyrics and what is being professed is about Christ and is uplifting Christ and uplifting the idea of having faith in him, I just don't conceptualize how God could be against that. Even if it sounds comparable to other stuff that's not Christian. And I mean that goes for any style too, not just metal. I know a lot of people would say the same thing about jazz or rock or whatever else. But
There's I would say, especially within um back in the 60s, the Beatles were like
sure.
devil worshippers. Like,
Yeah.
this music, don't listen to it. You're worshiping the devil. Yeah, there you could argue some of the music is very satanic, and this day it's
Sure.
very overt. There are Satanist bands doing stuff, and how many
Very
rap
true.
videos are doing satanic hand signs,
True.
or the complete iconography of the music video itself is a ritual sacrifice insert. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
uh,
Very true.
the intent behind Christian music is, I think,
Hmm.
what really matters.
Yeah.
And you're right. I feel like, are we doing the Christian community a disservice by putting out
Mm.
this kind of music? And my argument has been no. And I guess it's that because I was that kid that told my mom that Devil Wears Prada was a Christian man. Like every kid in
Sure.
2000, Devil Wears,
Sure.
it's Christian, mom.
It's Christian. It's okay. Yeah.
um, and for today, so those were
Mm.
heavily influential on my musical taste and
Yeah.
journey. So I don't know if they were for you as well.
Oh, definitely. Especially when I found out that they were Christian, like when I first got into metal and found out about them, I was like, these guys are Christian. What? But
Self-validating,
yeah.
yes.
What? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That is awesome. And
Yeah.
so, going back to Searching Serenity,
Yeah.
on the music videos that I've seen from your band, it
Sure.
looks like it's a one-man band. Is that
It
the
is.
case? It is? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So we did, like I said, we did start out in 2014s when we first started playing shows, and we did have a whole band at that time and played for about 4 years or so. And then it got to a point, we went through some different member changes here and there. A couple people ended up leaving just for different reasons. So in 2018, we got to a point where it was just myself, my brother, who was our drummer, and he was drummer the whole time the band was going, and then a different vocalist. And we got to a point where just my brother was about to graduate school and get into a full-time job and get married. Vocalist was about to go and pursue some other life stuff and get married soon too. So they kind of just peacefully decided to exit the band. And at that point, I was kind of like, I could either try and get more members, I could just kind of call it quits, or I had just graduated from a local university in music production. So I kind of decided to go with route number 3, which was go ahead and just do it myself, do solo project, and use what I've learned to make music at home and whatnot. And I'm glad I have. I've been able to do and put out so much more music in this last 5 years than we did in the 4 years of being a band. So it's weird, it's different, but it works.
It's like that age-old saying, no better way to get a job done than do it yourself.
I mean, honestly, I like working with people. It's not that I don't, but sometimes it is a little bit easier,
I anecdotally understand that there could be tensions within groups, and especially witnessing in the music scene and seeing that. So band tensions and like who's getting credit and there's a lot of drama.
There is.
And I feel like just people why we got to be dramatic about it? Like, come on.
Yeah. And that was that was definitely one of my things. Like there were instances where there'd be even just like little bits, and I hate that. I didn't want to ever feel like I was stepping on toes. So when the opportunity to go solo and just not deal with drama came up, that was one of the big reasons that I went with it, for sure, because I'm not trying to cause any arguments or anything.
So I see you've got let's see, you've got five. The discography is terrible to try to read on Spotify.
Oh yeah, you're good.
You got Darkness, instrumental volumes. The instrumental volume one is just awesome.
Appreciate that.
Struggles of the Earthly Ones. And Revelation, the end.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Genesis, the beginning. And that looks like that's your first album.
Yeah, it kind of did it weird. So we did like 2 EPs, and then I did those 2 albums, and then I did another EP in 2020. So it's kind of like I've done like one. I'm at this point now. I've got 7 full or 7 releases up there, I guess. And I'm working on my 8th album right now. But like 3 of them are EPs, so they're like kind of classified under the singles and EPs section, I guess. But yeah, like for those albums, Darkness, I just put that out last year. Struggles of the Earthly Ones the year before that, and the Genesis, the beginning specifically, that was the first one that I made and released as a solo project. That was the first one, kind of like right after going solo, that I worked on. It was really holds a special place in my heart, for sure.
So all the albums basically that are on your Spotify are you?
Almost, yeah. The only ones that aren't are or I guess at this point the only one that is not is an EP called Mortifer, Bearer of Death. That one is from like 2016. It's got the weird looking blue cover. That one does have our old vocalist. And it was also like produced by a producer that we hired, because at that point I did not know what I was doing.
That's fair.
Yeah. So that would be the one that does have a different vocalist and our old bassist as well at the time. But all the others are just me. Yeah.
The skill. I'm a part of a community called Sound Mind Beats. I came across them on TikTok, and the guy named Adam was like just mixing music. He was like, "Hey, I do reviews." I was like, "That's cool." And he reviewed my song. He's really helped me, in the community. Is great. He's actually mixing an album for a band called Mara Jade, which I'm going to argue is going to be the next, in my opinion, Linkin Park. Like they're going to, Marty has so much potential, and he's such a quirky individual. He's great. I love hanging out with him. So I'll share his links so you can check him out too.
Yes.
Shout out to you, Marty. You're the best.
Shout out to Marty.
but that community, something that Adam has always kind of preached, is a musician nowadays should be able to do it all, from mixing, producing,
Sure.
vocals, instruments. And so kind of coming up. So what
Yeah.
led to you getting into music in the first place? Was it
Mm. I yeah, man. One of the big things, and maybe a lot of people in the early 2000s can say this, but Guitar Hero. That was one of the things, in all
Xbox?
honesty.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, for real, I remember playing the first one with a friend in like 2005, and I heard Smoke on the Water, and I was like, that is the coolest thing I have ever heard in my life. And then yeah, so honestly, like a lot of the a lot of the music that I first got into and like actually chose to download and listen to myself was stuff that I learned on Guitar Hero. So that was definitely a big starting point. As for like kind of personally getting into music, I when I was younger, my parents got a divorce, which was really tough for sure. And I kind of felt like once I got into music and especially metal, it's like I kind of unlocked like a cool way that I felt comfortable kind of dealing with some of that frustration and any anger and stuff through music, especially through writing music and whatnot. So that definitely is one unfortunate, but at the same time, kind of helpful, inspirational source that kind of led me to really enjoying music like that, you know?
And so that's what pretty much drove you to do the Christian deathcore.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like a mix of, I mean, I also just enjoy the sound just in general, but yes, I enjoyed the kind of just the heavy, crazy style just due to that, you know, years of frustration, anger, all that. But then at the same time, that desire to keep it Christ centered and use the platform to try and share Jesus, even if it's just to 10 people at a local bar or something, you know? That was definitely a huge desire just to be able to try and do that as much as possible. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I had a situation where
Mm,
I had a coworker who thought I was an atheist because at the time I was listening to nothing but deathcore all the time, watching
sure.
videos. I think Die Hard is Murder just released their the Wolf album. I can't remember that, it has a wolf on the cover. I can't remember the name.
Oh yeah, Dear Desolation maybe or something.
Dear Desolation just dropped.
Okay.
So I was
Yep.
jamming it in my car. I was jamming it in
Yeah.
work, and he thought I was an atheist, and that really kind of hurt. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh,
Dang.
and so I kind of cold stopped it. Um,
Sure. Sure.
but lately, I would say because of COVID, I got back into it and started listening to these bands. And
Yeah.
in the midst of Lions, I don't even know how I came across them.
Yeah.
At YouTube, maybe. I'm not sure.
Sure.
Um, I have this curse where I get into stuff like
Hmm.
anime or shows and it gets canceled, or in this case, the
Yep.
band breaks up and you're like, oh, that was a fluke.
Crud.
And then
I
you
just
find
started
this.
liking this.
Yeah. And then I found the band, the Crimson Armada. I was like, oh, this is
Oh
so
no.
sweet. Where's
uh
their new music out? About that.
yeah.
um, and so I was like, okay,
Dang.
this sucks. And then I eventually found Christian Deathcore on
Yeah.
Facebook and started messaging with them, and
Yeah.
saw a whole bunch of artists and started looking out and want to reach out to some
Mm,
of the other ones in the community. So uh, I feel like we've mentioned it a lot, but in
sure.
rock, there's a lot of genres, and
Yeah.
deathcore is an interesting one.
Sure.
How would you describe it to somebody who's never heard it?
Mm, man, oh man. Uh that's kind of tough. It's like, how
Yeah.
do I don't, it's how I almost
Uh,
feel like it's like, how do you describe colors to a blind person almost? Um, I definitely, I don't know. I usually would say first, like, oh, well, deathcore is like a mix of death metal and hardcore. But I don't know. More so, I usually would just, I would just say like generally just a very intense style of music. That at least for me personally, especially experiencing it live, is just always just such a rush and just exciting and energetic. I'm like, even if I'm standing there, I don't feel like I'm just standing there bored. It's like it's an experience almost. Just the intensity of it. And also like sometimes even the absurdity. Like listening to like Lorna Shore and To the Hellfire and the whole, that blew up on TikTok and was crazy when that came out. Now, I don't like listen to Will doing the snarls and stuff and think, oh, that's very sophisticated and very intellect. I think it's funny. It's hilarious. It sounds crazy, but it is so cool at the same time that I am just like infatuated with it. So that I think I've got friends who like, they don't get it. They don't like metal. They can't stand it. And I think they think I'm over here like just like studying it and like it's just super like you just don't understand. It's just so deep. Like,
You're
no,
not
dude,
cultured.
yeah, you're not cultured. You just don't understand.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. It sounds funny. But it's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that deep.
Music. There's only one person more snobby than a wine sommelier, and that's a music fan.
Ain't that the truth?
And the cringiest ones, I'm sorry, I know I have a
Yeah.
bunch of friends, is EDM is the worst. It's like, how dare you? That is not house trance.
Oh my gosh.
That's
That
trance
is funk,
house.
obviously.
Yeah.
My
You're like, it all sounds the same. Stop.
It's literally all electronic music.
I just described like how deathcore came about.
Yeah.
In the more technical, like based off of the genres. And then I don't think, wait, do they know genres within rock?
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Now I've just given this technical of like the historicity of deathcore. And I'm like, it still doesn't describe it. And then when they hear it, they just go, oh, that's emo. And then you're like, no, it's not. It's not Midwest Ohio emo. It's different.
Oh, it's Screamo.
Yeah, Screamo.
That's funny. Yeah. are you familiar with Finn McKenty? Have you ever seen any of his stuff?
Finn McKenty? No.
He's cool. He does like a lot of deep dives into like music history, and he has a good video on like the roots of deathcore and just like how it first kind of started almost. Good guy to check out on YouTube.
So when I came back from my mission service,
sure,
I had a lot of depression because for 2 years I had this like go and proselytize, which is really easy. Like, oh, hey, old lady, I can help you with your stuff or clean up from tornadoes. Like life was easy. And then I came back and it's like, I need to start life. I need to go get married. I need to go to school. I need a lot of depression.
Sure.
And I found the band The Color Morale. And I think that's because I had a little Devil Wears Prada. I knew about Coheed and Cambria. And so I just started going into it. Yeah. And eventually through metalcore, which is more of a melodic rock, which has become very popular. In fact, I would argue that is the rock you hear on radio now is
honestly
metalcore.
Bad Omens and stuff. Yeah.
And then eventually the algorithm is like, oh, we think you would like this. And then you end up in deathcore. And I haven't really left, but I would say my favorite metalcore band, and that's because it's a toss-up between We Came as Romans, The Devil Wears Prada, and Being as an Ocean, because I've seen all three live. Oh, Seosin and Silverstein are also really good.
Also really good.
But Joe Qualterso of Being as an Ocean, it was at a Vans Warped Tour in Houston, and we were on a small baby stage. It was like the Little Tuner or some weird name that they came up with that year.
Sure.
And he grabbed the 100-foot microphone and he's like jumping around and like crowd surfing while singing the song without missing a beat whatsoever, and like moshing with everyone and like lighting the fans. And there's like 25 of us, and it was like the most intimate musical experience. And then you go over and you hear the Attila going off in the background, and you're just like, I'll just stay over here. This is better.
Yep. Man, that's where it's at, man. Those kinds of experiences, that's unbeatable. That is so fun.
I was home on leave, and it was in the winter, and I drug a sibling to the Last 10 Seconds of Life in Utah. And where the venue was, I had never been there before. I'd been all over Utah to all these different venues because the music scene is mass. Post Malone lives there now, to give anyone an indicator of Utah.
That's cool.
And so all these different venues all over the place. And it's in this, was it the dock or something, I think is what it's called. It's like a loading dock for a old factory. And they just randomly set up shows. and it's like
Wow.
you're all packed, and then like half of us were being rained on, and then it started turning to snow. It was
Oh
insane.
my
Insane.
God.
It was just a great band. And then the opening
Yeah.
acts, when they recorded their instrumental beat, I'm pretty sure they're using FL Studio because I've had the issue. But when they were recording, it recorded their metronome, and they had a
No.
cowbell, and it was just mixed in the music, and they couldn't turn it off, and they were so embarrassed. But it was just so great. We were like,
That's
cowbell, cowbell.
hysterical.
But it was great. And then I got a phone call, and it was like, it's a blizzard right now, and you need to get home. I was like, yeah, okay.
Mm.
And it turned into a blizzard. So, but
Dang.
it's crazy though, because in the music scene, a concert with like 75, that's a huge show.
That's a big show. That's a big turnout. Yeah.
And to us, that's like going and seeing Metallica or Lana Del Rey at a big, massive arena. So it's very,
Sure.
I would say it's very uncommon. You mentioned Lorna Shore. I would argue is one of the top touring bands, that and Slaughter to Prevail, because they're actually selling out massive arenas. Mainly because they're playing at music festivals.
But it's wild though. Like, just on that real quick, like we played like 2 different shows with Lorna Shore, and like our last show that we ever played was with them, and that was in like 2018. So I mean, 5 years ago. But it was just, it's crazy like looking back on that, because like both of those shows, even the second one, which was a Lorna Shore headliner, they only had like 50 people, maybe 75 people, like you said, and that felt packed for sure. But now seeing them play, like I just saw them at an amphitheater with Gojira and Mastodon, seeing them play to 5,000 something people, seeing them play Download Festival the other day with like probably tens of thousands, like that's just mind blowing for me to think about.
Because when you get into deathcore, you begin to pick up the names of all these bands, and you start following it.
Yeah.
2018. Oh, what is that? I still get likes on it. I made a comment on Instagram or something, but it was when Chelsea Grin, Signs of Swarm. There was like the great band,
the great
swap,
vocalist.
and I made a comment like, "What was this? The NBA drafts?" And so every now and then again, I get people commenting it on it. But
oh man, that's funny.
it's just, that's why
that was a funny time.
Yeah, that's why I think I like this music so much, is because it's so small.
Yeah.
I was leaving out Salt Lake Airport once, and I saw this dude, and he had Autumn Burns Red stickers and merchandise, and everything. He had a punk jacket, he had Autumn Burn Red, it's everything. I was like, so I'm gonna guess you hate Autumn Burns Red. And he's like, yeah, I really hate them. Like, yeah, it's really awesome to see that kind of dedication. He's like, you would hope. I'm the sound engineer. I was like, what?
Whoa, what?
He's like, yeah, I'm cousins with them. And,
oh man,
I was like, wow. So I feel like it's a smaller world.
Yeah.
And it's just really weird to see these bands blow up that were like really niche. And you're like,
yeah,
I hung out. There was barely 20 people at that event you went to. And now you're 5,000 opening for Metallica. Like, that's just insane.
Right. Yeah.
It's just insane. So that's really awesome. You got to open for Lorna Shore. Nobody can take that away from you.
Right. Yeah.
Your music sucks, but I opened for Lorna Shore.
I played for Lorna Shore. And that last show too, that was also with Signs of the Swarm, and that was like 2 months before all the vocalist swaps. So like Tom was still in Lorna, CJ was still in Signs of the Swarm, and then like that was in February 2018, and then 2 months later in April, I like saw Tom left Lorna, CJ joined Lorna, David joined, like that whole thing was So I really am glad that I got to play at that moment right before that all happened. That was cool.
That's awesome. Sorry, this is one of my cats.
No, you're good.
He has no personal space. Here, get down.
You're good. I got one of my dogs at my feet right now.
It's really awesome. I'm not trying to brag, but I am in a course
you're good.
with Will Ramos as one of the instructors, and we're supposed to be doing a Zoom meeting. They keep having too many people sign up. It was pricey, but it has been really worth it. Like, I get to hear his isolated vocals. And he's just such a genuine guy. And it's just crazy that he started singing in the shower, and his mom thought he was possessed.
That's
like,
funny.
What are you doing in there? Catholic household,
Oh man.
Yeah.
I
So,
I had seen back in like 2016, I like saw him with his old band that he was in. It was called Awake in Providence. And that was another one of those shows. There's like 20, 30 people. And I like went up and got a CD from them, and they were, they were small at the time, but he was very genuine and very nice and whatnot. So when I saw that he joined when he joined Lorna, I was really happy for him for sure. He's been
uh,
killing it.
yeah, the not to sidetrack it, but
Yeah, you're good.
it's sponsored by Chris Lipe. He is a
Okay.
self-taught musician, and he runs a studio called My Musical Voice, and he does different lessons, like learn how to sing like Blake Shelton or Lana Del Rey or whatever.
Sure. Whoever
Well,
you want.
he's working with Elizabeth Zorhoff, who's
Okay.
a trained opera singer,
Yes.
and she has
The
done
charismatic
interviews.
voice, is
Yeah, the
that right?
charismatic voice.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, you need to listen to Lorna the Shore, Into the Hellfire. And so she is now a metalhead,
Yes.
and they are doing this course where all three of them are going through on how
Mm,
to do it safely. And so
I love that.
it still has spots, and it's forever. So if you purchase it, you'll have access until the servers are closed, and
Wow.
everything is downloadable. So I have access to Will Ramos's vocals without music. So it's like, oh,
Wow.
and like exercise. So it's been real fun.
That's so cool. That's such a cool team up. I love seeing that.
It's such a weird
Man.
team up. It's
Yeah.
like you're just
It
watching
really
it,
is.
and she's so knowledgeable about the vocal anatomy, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
when I do this and the false chord, I can kind of feel, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's real interesting to have that perspective, and then to have Chris, who's like self-taught and has had to
Sure.
like, I want to emulate the sound, how do I do that? And he's doing that. And then you just have Will, who's just being Will. And
Hey
so
guys, it's Will Ramos here.
yeah, he's very very boisterous, so it's
Yeah.
awesome. um
That's so funny.
so
Man.
getting into deathcore,
Yeah.
you originally weren't the vocalist for Searching Serenity, and now you
Mm.
are Searching Serenity. So how did you
Right.
get into doing the vocal aspect of that?
Yeah. So my first instrument when I first learned music was guitar. So that's always my roots. That's always been my roots for sure. And then yeah, when I started Searching Serenity, I started as a guitarist, and I started it with a good friend of mine who's also named Robert. And he was the vocalist for a while. So yeah, so I had always had an interest in doing vocals, and I always liked like singing, like just, normal singing. But a little bit down the line just started kind of like messing around with screaming and harsh vocal styles. And um as Searching Serenity was going on from 2014 to 2018, I just kind of kept practicing and messing around with vocals on my own. And when we got to that point of the last two guys leaving and me deciding to go solo, I was at a point where I wouldn't say I felt like 100% confident with my vocals, but I was at a point where I felt confident enough to at least give it a shot, to at least try and see, like, let me try and work on an album, see if I can put my vocals on, see how it feels and whatnot. Um, and just kind of rolled with it. And I just felt comfortable enough that I was like, I'm just going to keep working on it. I figure, every album I release, hopefully I'll be able to listen to it and then compare it to the previous one, say, yep, I definitely hate how it sounded before. So that means I'm hopefully growing a little bit. But I do definitely enjoy just doing the harsh vocals as well. So kind of get to just do it all, I guess, because of that,
It, this is one of the arts where it's very obvious there is inherent ability. You see those
Sure.
child prodigies. Like, I don't know if you've seen the 7-year-old kid doing EDM music, and he's now in a studio, running around a studio recording. He's like, oh, I
Yes.
love this. This is insane. And you're like, you're 7 years
Yeah.
old.
How do you even know what that
What are
is?
you doing?
Yeah.
iPad kids, I guess. I don't know.
Honestly, man. Yeah.
But it is an art. And if you go and look at it, music, it, uh, anthropologists argue,
Sure.
when we left the grove or we left the cave, um, we were drawing in the cave, were we singing in the cave,
Mm,
and were we sculpting in the cave? So it's kind of in telling stories. So it's kind of like the triumvirate, if you will, of
Sure.
the original art, very ancient origins and society. And I would say until the invention of the radio,
Mm,
most people had the ability, not amazingly, not high quality, but they could sing
sure.
a song. They knew choir.
Yeah.
Um, my grandpa, for instance, he had a harmonica that he learned how to play when he was in the army, post Korea,
Okay.
and he kept with it all of his life. Just played the
Ooh,
harmonica,
sure.
and now it's kind of like it's not as common. So I feel like there's a lot of disassociation, and then it's kind of also really hard to get into it because when you're like, oh hey, I'm releasing music, and then they're like, oh let me hear it, and they're like, that's trash. And it's like they're expecting Metallica after 40 years of touring that you're going to have
Sure.
that quality, and you're like,
I just started.
I've been doing this for 6 months. Like, okay.
Yeah.
um but I feel like in metal the community is a lot more nicer.
Sure.
There are some jerks out there, but
Sure. But also, even like you were saying earlier too, about especially this last couple years with the amount of people that are learning to do to do production and everything by themselves and making it more accessible for everyone. And therefore the amount of new bands and the amount of new music that is coming out, like there's so much out there that it's like, even if everyone kind of says they have a mindset of just, oh, we're just working together, we're all collaborating, there's still a lot of competition, I mean, how do you take 1 million different deathcore artists and like have one that, like, how do you do something that stands out? It can be tough for sure.
it's different. And that's what I
Yeah.
like. I can see in your discography is you're kind of growing through this too, and
Sure.
it's your sound. And
Sure.
I guess it's because I blew through all of your stuff that it
Oh
stands
man,
out more through the
appreciate that.
Christian Deathcore playlist on Spotify. I'm like,
Sure.
oh, there's Robert.
Oh man,
Uh,
huge shout
but
out to Dustin from Christian Deathcore, by the way. Great dude, great
yeah,
everything.
sorry, Dustin. I blow up your DMs all the time. Hey, what do you think of this? um,
But yeah,
yeah, I would say COVID did a lot.
I agree.
I was on YouTube and this guy went live. His name is David Benitez. And
Oh
he's
yeah.
like, hey, I'm David Benitez. I'm a trained musician. And because of COVID, me and I think I don't know if he was married then, but
Mm,
him and his spouse now
mhm.
put out Extreme Vocal Institute of how to do that. And so I've been doing that
Yes.
on and off, but it's that whole
Nice.
practicing skill thing. Um, how have you found incorporating everything
Mm.
into your routine? Are you doing it every day? Are you
Mm. Yeah, I definitely, I will say I'm not good about like having a good warm up routine and doing stuff consistently. I should be more consistent with it, even if it's just a daily, just to keep things fresh and whatnot. Um, I do live alone, so that helps. I don't feel bad about like just sitting and screaming along to something randomly if I'm feeling like it or whatever. When I lived at home, obviously wasn't really doing that much because my mom was around. I didn't want to scare her or feel weird about that or anything. Um, I do really like David's videos though. I've definitely been able to kind of learn some good tricks from his stuff, and especially like his videos where he does like just the 30 seconds like how to sound like Chester Bennington. Like just all these weird tricks that he does that you're just like, "Dang, why does that make so much sense?" Those have definitely been helpful. Um,
I've
but yeah.
this month I started my 10th because he does it in a month, 30 days, 30 days, 6 days, and
Mm.
or 6 months and then a year.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool.
I've done a total of 10 months of his lessons through EVI
Wow.
now.
That's legit. Wow.
And there's so much. And I have found that for me, I was doing it every other day, but it doesn't cut it. And I
Sure.
feel like you have to I do a little bit of something because
Sure.
like, let's say you try to push yourself and your voice gets sore and you're like, oh no, cough drops, lozenges. Now I got to
Yeah.
heal. And then you go to sing it and your body's like, we've never done this before. What are you doing? You're like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? We did it.
Yeah.
We were, in your case, I have recorded 5 albums.
Yeah, honestly.
What are you talking about? So it's different. Will
Yeah,
Ramos said this actually in one of the things.
sure.
As a guitarist, you could probably do this. If you break a guitar string, you can still jam through that. A
Sure.
vocalist doesn't get replacement guitar strings for their vocal cords. And
Man.
so you got to take that care. And so it's like when you feel that itchiness, you're like, man, I
Yeah,
messed up.
right.
uh,
That's a good point. That's a good way to think about it for sure.
Time to get
I
that tea.
Yeah. I definitely like, and I think this is part of my problem. Like I've definitely, at least for certain styles, like lows and stuff like that are much more comfortable for me than highs. So I definitely am at a point with lows where I could do that more or less endlessly. I don't want to say endlessly because I definitely get tired after a little while, but I can do it like painlessly. So it's like I've allowed that to let me kind of get stagnant and continuing to practice and learn stuff. So it's like, oh well, I've got my main style that I can do and I'm comfortable with it. But I shouldn't stop there. I need to be better about continuing to practice and continue getting used to doing other styles too. So
And
that's good encouragement.
the warm-ups, like
Yeah,
I don't mess around. If somebody at work is like, hey, do you do weird vocals? I'll do a split, 30 seconds of that because it's like
sure,
that, but I'm not going to be singing along in a car without warming up now. Like I
sure.
just do it. It's kind of like going to the gym. I'm going to
Yeah,
stretch. I'm going to do my mobility work and then I'm going to go work out because what I don't want to do is go in and tear a rotator cuff or, get a blister
yeah.
in the throat and then
Hmm.
have to go get surgery. So I take it very serious. And I know Riley and David of the Extreme Vocals do that. And then in the other
Sure.
course, they're really into that. But so you do
Yeah,
the guitar, you got the music production,
yeah,
um, you've been messing around with the vocals. How do
yeah,
you come up with these lyrics?
yeah.
What is your process behind that?
I generally, I pretty much always write the instrumental first. I've never really been able to write lyrics and then write something to fit that. So I usually always have a song written first. So what I'll usually try and do with the lyrics, because I want to try and make sure that I'm being intentional and not just throwing something random on the page just to get it out. I'll usually sit down somewhere, listen to the song that I'm trying to work on, and I always try and have some kind of a theme with each album, which kind of helps. And I'll just kind of think, okay, like what is this making me feel? What is this making me kind of want to talk about? And I'll usually try and find a verse or two that relates to whatever topic I'm wanting to talk about, and I'll use that kind of as my foundation. Quite often in a couple of the albums, I'll like start with the verse that I'm referencing or at least have it in the song, but then just kind of go off about that, whatever it is. um and that kind of also, I just like having the biblical basis like very strong in there, um but that's always like the main way that I go about it, is having the Bible and having some verse or story or topic that I'm going off of based off of that.
Okay, you theme it and then you build the instrumentals,
Yeah,
play
yeah,
around with it, and then
exactly.
write lyrics based off what you have.
Exactly.
I have no last time I played an instrument was in the 6th and the 7th grade as a violinist, and
Oh
then
yeah.
I haven't touched an instrument since. I was trying to get into the bagpipe for a while and I actually bought the flute portion, but I
What?
lost
Yeah.
that somewhere. And I haven't ordered another one because the stem with the I can't remember what the little cord in there.
Mm,
It's real finicky, and I bought a cheap one. I realized I should have bought an expensive one, and I just haven't recommitted to it just because of
sure.
shipping. But yeah,
Maybe
getting
one
into it.
day.
Yeah. Uh
That's cool though.
that's interesting. I
Yeah.
I uh I get my instrumentals through Dark Cabin Studios, Jacob.
Oh, okay.
He he's such a great individual, mainly because I push him. I'm like, hey, here are the lyrics. Here's the theme. I want the sound. Let's go.
Yeah.
I would say the hardest one I gave him was, I was like, what if Johnny Cash opened for Lorna Shore?
Oh my gosh.
And so
um.
my song Release from Pain is
Uh-huh.
country. And in the song, it's like 3 songs in one. And so it
Okay.
ticks people off. But yeah, it was real interesting. And then as I was vocalizing the track and um, doing the takes, I was like, oh, this is terrible, and started moving stuff around. Do you feel like you have that same thing, or do you feel like you hit it on the head every single time?
It I would say it depends song to song, but most of the time I do feel pretty comfortable with it, like even after our first run through. Um I used to be worse about like hitting record, going through the recording and getting to the end and being like, you know what, I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe go through and like re-record a line here or there. But I was never too picky about that. I've tried to be a little bit better about taking my time with stuff more so now, and definitely will like on this most recent album I just kind of finished producing and whatnot. I definitely had a lot of parts where I kind of went back and readjusted something a little bit more than just simply re-recording it, maybe move the timing of it or change the line here or there. Um, but I don't know, for the most part, I'm once I have the lyrics written and all, I'm usually able to kind of just feel it out and kind of just go through everything within half an hour more or less. But it can be different for every song for sure. Some of them are more tricky.
Uh, my biggest sin is um, sometimes I'm too overconfident, and I always bite
Oh,
off more
sure.
than I can chew.
Sure.
When you listen to music, you just like insert your favorite song.
Sure.
You're like, wow, it just works. Now you go try to do that on your own. It is very hard. You're like,
Mm.
huh, do I wait 30 seconds? Do I sing where like
Right.
it's really weird listening to it and just trying to feel out like the vibe and what
Mm-hmm.
what it should sound like. And then in
Mm-hmm.
deathcore, people who are uninitiated, it all probably sounds the same, but there's differences in styles and shrieks and belches and
Yeah.
blahs
Bless.
and tea kettles and how you scream. And do I snarl here? Do I false chord or fry scream here? It's a
Yeah.
bit different. So
Sure.
um, finding that inspiration is it's been fun. Um,
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
I've been experimenting with ChatGPT on
Oh yeah. Okay.
um, now I have experience in that because of my academic schooling right now through my graduate degree I'm working through. And I've looked at how ChatGPT works. What people do is they use it wrong. And so that's when they're like, I want a song about deathcore. It can do that, but it's just going to copy what it sees, and it's just
Sure.
going to give you, and it feels bland. It's not very, so you can actually train it to sound like you. Um,
Wow.
you can give it an essay and say, I wrote this. When you phrase it, can you phrase things like this? Or
Oh my gosh.
and I use it more as an editor because I live my wife isn't with me right now. My
Okay.
cats are not gonna, give me feedback on what if it sounds good.
Sure.
And so I use like Microsoft Word read aloud feature in the chat GPT to like rephrase this, what does this sound, and kind of brevity. And it's kind of helped
Hmm.
me fine tune my next 2 songs that are unreleased right now, and so I'm interested to see how that goes. So
That's genius.
it'll
Yeah. That's really smart.
be interesting. If it works and it
Huh.
gets views, I'll make a video on how to do it.
There you go.
But that's awesome. I
That's
for
a smart concept on like using it without abusing it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want to ever be considered somebody who is fraudulent. I don't want to be
Sure.
I want to have honor to my name. I don't want
Sure.
somebody to go, "Oh, he stole that." If I did not cite you properly, it's purely accidental. It wasn't
Yeah.
intentional. So I want to have ownership and credibility with my name, and I don't want it to be like, "Oh, he didn't write that. I 100% I wrote this." I have actually found um, to have it give me a couple different responses. I'll ask it,
Sure.
can you redo this verse, but give me 5 different options, and then I'll piece what I originally wrote with what it
Yeah.
wrote, or like, oh, I like that song. And then you have to take it and like, does the syllable count line up with the music part right now? And so now you're like,
Good point. Dang it.
maybe onomatopoeia does not work in this section. So let's change these words around. So it's real interesting. And it's kind of, my brain likes it because it's like a puzzle you're trying to solve. And then you listen to it and you're like, delete, record.
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah.
So,
Man.
which is why I started doing the whole focusing back in on the music lessons because of some feedback I got. So I just want to, I paid a lot of money to have the licensing because I don't have guitar yet. So I want to do good on there, but
it's all trial and error. You know, you got to figure out what works for you and how to best go about it, and all part of the process, right?
Yeah. Something somebody told me once was, I'd rather try and fail than fail at trying, which I'm pretty sure is stolen from somebody else. But
it's a great point, nonetheless, for sure.
Yeah, we get one life. I'd rather try to use that, and I really feel like you particularly have a gift in it, so it's really awesome that you're able to share it. I was thinking, praise worship isn't how my faith operates. We're more traditional pew sermon, sing a hymn, prayer, discussion. Hey, potluck's coming up. Okay. And then 1 to 3 sermons, sometimes just testimony, and then a closing, the sacrament, and then that kind of thing. But in praise and worship services, I was like, I wonder if there's a church doing Christian deathcore. And why isn't there a church doing Christian deathcore? I'm pretty sure we could get some people to go. And so I was like, I wonder if Searching Serenity has had that opportunity yet.
If I ever had the opportunity, I would absolutely give it a shot.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that concept. I love that. I have seen in I want to say Finland or something like that, somewhere in Europe, I have seen that there is a metal church, like a legit Christian church that has metal music as the music, and everything else is basically, just standard church service and biblical teaching, but they got metal music. So, but a Christian deathcore one specifically, I'm in.
It'll be the late night service.
There we go. We'll have a barricade just to keep people safe, but you can also kneel at the barricade for communion.
Why are you sliding the pews away? Where's the mosh pit going?
Yeah, where else do we go? That's hilarious, man.
I think it all has a time and its place, and I'm sure somebody will. And something I found is how can you have positive music with something that sounds so atrocious?
Right.
And I clearly like it, so I'm going to be defensive. And my argument is, in the Bible, when God speaks, or people are speaking on behalf of God, or witnessing God speaking, it's very interesting how the authors and the prophets of those particular books and verses described the voice of God sounding like rushing waters, mighty. And so
interesting.
I also think about how the adversary is always tweaking things that are righteous to make them unrighteous.
Sure.
And I feel like maybe the whole demonic thing that we think is demonic was actually a bastardization of what was angelic. And so I was like,
Good
so
point.
it's interesting. And I say that and you're like, huh.
Yeah. So, I haven't thought about it like that, but that is a great point. I mean, I don't know. I'm having to process it, but I see where you're going with that.
Get back to me with
Yeah, that's interesting.
Let it soak.
Yeah.
So for me, I would rather be quality over quantity. And that's sort of the thing. Life is so busy. I don't have time to do everything all the time. So I'd rather put out a few good songs.
Sure.
Instead of taking, I don't want to say this, but hip hop is notorious for putting out 50 track albums. to get,
Oh yeah.
1 or 2 hits off of it. And it's like,
Hmm.
why don't you just do 12 decent songs instead of like throwing all the darts at the wall and hoping a
Right.
couple stick,
Yeah. Because it doesn't feel like intentional or authentic if they're just like pumping out all those tracks. It makes it feel like they're legit just in there rushing, like, just take the same thing from that song and put it over here, but in reverse or something. I don't know. Like, I agree with you. I want it to feel like, I'm putting my heart into this. I mean what I'm saying. I mean what I'm doing, and I don't want it to sound like crap.
Yeah, no, I'm not condoning any hatred towards them. There are some
Sure.
artists that will go into the room and they just
Sure.
play beats, just random beats, and they freestyle to it. But um, the oversaturation with like it's just very commonplace. So
Yeah.
um, I'm not trying to cause a music war. Please don't get me mistaken. Uh, but yeah, that whole emphasis and focus and talent. That's something I was thinking about too. Is the talents that we have. I think at the final judgment, I'd rather be told I sought too much to magnify my talents than be that guy that buried the talent. I'd rather fail
Hmm.
than not try at all.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I do have plans. I think if I were to pick up an instrument, drums, in order to get through a NCO school, it was really dumb. I was the last class that they made marching as a mandatory requirement in order to pass.
Oh, really?
And so they removed it for the future ones.
Huh.
But for
That's
my
funny.
class, they're like, you still have to do it. And so like stepping in cadence and being in beat was really hard. And so somebody
Sure.
said, do some drumming and then just step and keep within that beat. And so that's really helped. So, and playing around, I'm ambidextrous. So I feel like I'm going to try some drums, and then digital drum
Yeah,
sets are pretty awesome. So, um,
definitely.
more
Especially with
places
that
to explore.
ambidextrous, man. I mean, that could be a huge blessing right there for
Plus
sure.
they have like crazy, like three, what's the little thing called? The pedal, the double kick has been very
Oh, the dump.
popular. Have you seen
Yes.
the triple kick where it has a
Yes.
flutter? I'm like,
That's
what?
crazy. Yes.
How can you dance to that? Yes. Yeah, it's insane.
Insane. Yeah,
But it's interesting.
for sure. Super helpful.
Um, or just to play around and have it,
Sure.
you never know.
Yeah. Drums are
So
definitely a blast. I'm not a great drummer. I can drum and like have drum in church and stuff like that. So like on a more or less basic level, um, I would love to say that I only put out Searching Serenity songs with drums that I could be able to play live. I'd like to say that, but realistically, I could not nail it as well as they sound on there. My brother, who was our drummer for 4 years, though, he is a great drummer, and he definitely enjoys it. So it's definitely a fun instrument, man.
yeah, it's different, especially when you see people doing insane stuff. There's a
Right.
kid. I hate to say kid. I'm 33, so he's a kid to
Sure.
me. But
Sure.
he's 17 or 18, and
Mhm.
he's the one who plays the organ for us.
Okay.
I'm like, that is such a talent.
Yeah.
Um, I've been trying to get him to like, hey, can you just come up with some crazy stuff?
Yeah.
Record it. We can record it because the church has recording stuff. We just come in
Oh,
here,
nice.
on a Saturday and record. He's
Yeah.
no,
Ah,
stop.
dang it.
I want an organ on my
Come
next
on.
deathcore song. Do it for me.
Does he
Uh,
is he doing stuff with his feet too? Like, is
oh,
it more full on
100%. You
organ?
see him get
Oh
up there,
man.
he like kicks his shoes off and he's going to town.
Bro, that is just mind blowing to me. I've tried messing around with that because my church has one like that too, and I just don't have the coordination to be able to do it that well at all. I can go ahead and kick down a main note to hold and then play like something basic, but people that are just like tapping around with all four limbs, oh
It's such a weird instrument. Like,
yeah,
people are crazy.
I agree with you. But man, that's
Um,
impressive, especially for 17, 18, around that age. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. Fostering those talent again. He is working that talent.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
He is moving this year, so he will be missed. And everyone's like,
Oh.
okay, who's next? And it was like, oh.
No.
um,
Wow.
but yeah, it's just interesting kind of doing stuff.
Hmm.
We also live in a weird age. I don't know. Have you seen the video of the lady doing Tool on a electric harp?
I
She,
cannot say that I have.
yeah,
What?
yeah,
That's kind of
yeah.
cool.
Uh, insane. I was like, are you open to
Aw.
collabs, please?
Man.
It's just different.
Yeah. I love the
Now's
innovation
if
for
you're
sure. I
into
mean, it's
music,
oof.
now's now.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. And I know you mentioned this too, like, but with COVID this last 3 years, I feel like that has been in many ways a huge blessing, like just the gateway, the doorway opening for people to just be online more and get their stuff out there, and collaborate and meet new people. I mean, before 2020 I had basically no Christian deathcore community, didn't really know any other bands of that style outside of locally, and there's none locally. But once COVID happened and I was forced to do stuff online more, met so many awesome people, so many good friends, and I mean, people that I've never met in person, but I would consider like some of my best friends. It's awesome.
I know I know talking with you and seeing how you're doing, it's not like it would be cool to tour like Lorna Shore,
Sure.
but the chances of getting
Sure.
there are not in our favor
Right.
in our music.
Right.
But we live in a different time to where we don't need to go to Sony Records to have an album go platinum.
Yeah.
Um, like the artist Jelly Roll. I don't know if you've heard him. He was recently
Sure.
on Joe Rogan. He
Yeah.
was he was platinum on YouTube before he even found a label, and he only did the
Wow.
label because there were some benefits that just were working for him. And so
Sure.
we live in a weird time.
Wow.
And I mentioned Sound Mind Beats. Adam uh and his group with Sound Mind Beats is
Hmm.
basically have reiterated, and it you can verify it, you don't need an album to go platinum to be successful and to make a living off of it. You just need to get those, you need to get 10 core fans that
Yeah.
will grow to 100 core fans. And that's who you, I want to say it's
Yeah.
like 100 plus. You can earn a living off of just music alone
Wow.
from streaming. So
Sure.
really growing that community. So I wanted to use my platform to kind of like kick that out there, um, to give people
Yeah.
options other than um, "Come Thou Fount of Blessings." As great as a hymn that is,
Of
I'm
course. Of
sure you'd
course.
like to have different options. And a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, "We need some Christian rock music for gym." And so I'm like, searching Serenity, you got some pretty good gym bangers. I'm just saying.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Yeah.
But so you post, I'm pretty sure you posted you were dropping another album soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On July 7th, dropping
Ooh.
Retribution. I'm very excited about it. I've been working on it for over a year at this point, which for me at least is about the longest that I've worked on one. So I'm really excited to get it out.
Is there a retribution? It sounds like there's a lot of personal things tied into that song, the
Yeah,
that track.
to some extent there is. Yeah, I was sitting trying to think, and this was one where I did not even have like an album title even after like finishing all the songs and everything. I was just sitting, I'm like, man, I just don't know for sure what what am I trying to exactly portray with the whole album as a whole. And my kind of thought with it, um, with like just where the songs are at and whatnot, my thought was, you know, this is a lot of this is talking about the negative stuff Satan does, and then ultimately the positivity that comes from God through that. And I was just kind of thinking, okay, God's retribution against Satan for the wrong that he's done. That was just kind of like the main theme that I was thinking about. Because I love having Christ-centered lyrics, and I love having stuff that is biblically based, but that doesn't, for me at least, that doesn't mean it's just butterflies and rainbows and positivity. I like addressing tough stuff and tough topics and stuff that sucks, but then also being able to follow it up by talking about God having the last word, God winning the war, and so yeah, so that's kind of the thought behind the title. Just God getting the ultimate say, God getting the ultimate retribution against Satan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. Appreciate
It's
that.
it's hard. My one song I have out right now was really
Yeah,
hard. I
sure,
released it 22 May, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. 22
sure,
is
cool.
22 veterans a day commit suicide.
Mm,
Um,
yeah, man.
I personally know several peers of mine who have done that. Um,
Yeah.
and that's something that I struggled with myself. And in the song, while it starts off very somber and it transitions into something very crazy, it ends with how I felt the love of God, and I am cared for, and I do matter. And so, like, writing those emotional songs,
Yeah.
um, I felt like if I was to not release it, I'd be doing more harm, because maybe my story will connect with some random listener to that,
Sure.
and they can relate to that, and to feel that relief of, being told, be still and know that I am. And so,
Hmm.
um, I can really feel your passion for that throughout all your music. So I am super stoked.
Appreciate that, man.
Um,
Yeah.
any banger music videos? I want to say I saw a teaser for your music video. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
how are you doing that? You just going on Craig's ads, Craigslist, just doing.
No, I actually, my brother who was our drummer, like he still lives here in Jacksonville too, and I'm very thankful for him. He's very talented, so I always whenever I have one I'm really wanting to do, I just kind of hit him up and try and find a time that we can meet. And I usually I have my gear, but I just kind of hand him, here's my camera rig, do whatever looks cool to you. And I'm always, he's got a good eye and always does a good job. So any music video where there's like an actual camera moving around rather than being on a tripod, that was filmed by my brother. So
That's
so yes,
awesome.
so he and I just literally on 2 nights ago, Sunday night, we went and filmed one, and very excited about it. It's for possibly my favorite song on the album. And I'm going to be just dropping it on the same day that the album drops. So that'll be cool.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, thanks,
I'm
man.
really excited for you.
I appreciate
Um,
that.
I
Appreciate
just
that.
like that my Christian deathcore is growing outside of 5 bands. Yeah,
There you
there's
go.
more. There's more, but
Sure, definitely. I
that's
appreciate that
awesome.
though, man.
Um,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to reach out, where can they find your music?
Yeah.
Uh, best way to contact you.
Sure. I do my best to have my music available on everything, on Bandcamp, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all that. And I do my best to reply to Facebook messages. Sometimes I can be a little bit slow, but I need to be better about checking the band one especially. But I'm never opposed to people reaching out on my personal page. I am not a closed off person like that. So if anyone ever messages me on my Facebook or Instagram or anything, I'm always down to connect and chat. I have email too, searching serenityband@gmail.com, but who uses email anymore, right? I'm just kidding. But yeah, I try my best to be very accessible. I'm not ever intentionally closing off to chatting with people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Always love to connect.
but yeah, I'll
Yeah.
shoot you some links for some stuff I mentioned, just so you can have them.
Yes.
And
Make sure you send me your stuff too. Or
oh
you said you have one out right now
yeah,
already. What's the title for that? I want to make sure I save that right now.
it's the band's called A Type in Shadow.
Okay. Let's see. A type in shadow. And then what was the song that you do have
Release
out?
from Pain. Um, with Harry Tedian. He's a really
Got it.
sweet guy
Nice.
from
Okay.
the UK.
Oh,
Uh,
sweet. That's cool.
and I got into another Facebook group, and Harry was like on some other stuff, so he's growing in the community, so it's really awesome. I was like, yes.
That's cool.
He'll get famous.
There you
And when they
go.
Google him, they will find him on my song. So
Good collab right there.
there's also, I did a lyric
Legit.
video, so if you're ever interested in lyric videos, for this one I really wanted a lyric video.
Okay.
And it works. And man, the guy on Fiverr, like I requested it and it was like less than 12 hours completely done. I was like, how are you that fast?
That looks really good. I've got it up right now. That's crazy. Wow. Dude, Fiverr is insane, man.
Yeah, it gets expensive. So
True.
I have a Excel doc to remind me how deep it's kind of like the fallacy of sunk cost. I need that to be very relevant
Sure.
and to be real.
Sure.
So gotta work on the skills. But yeah, this has been super fun. But I gotta get up for work in a couple hours.
No
So I'm gonna try
problem,
to
man.
catch some shut eye. This has been freaking awesome. Thank you so
I
much,
agree.
Robert.
Yeah. Thank you again
And
for having me, man.
I'll be sure to blast your stuff and put it out. It's been great.
I appreciate that.
And
Awesome.
you gotta do a closing blah.
There
Sweet. Thanks, man.
we go. Thanks for having me, dude. I really appreciate it.